So this movie is on spelling, Excel's spell checker. There's a lot of functionality with the spell checker. We can ignore the instance of the misspelling, or we can ignore all of the instances of the misspelling of a particular word on a worksheet. We can add that misspelling to our custom dictionary so that Excel won't call it out as a misspelled word in the future. We can change the misspelled word, or we can change all of the misspelled words that are similar to the one that's being called out. We can undo the last change that we made. We can add the misspelling to autocorrect so that Excel will actually autocorrect our misspelling in the future. We can access our custom dictionary, and then there's a few other options with the spell checker that we're going to look at. So spell checker by default, if you have one cell selected in a worksheet, will check the entire worksheet. If you have a region selected, it'll just check that selected region, which is what we're going to do, because what I want to do is handle each one of these areas separately. So the spell checker is found on the Review tab. In the proofing group, left-clicking Spelling. And Excel starts from the top of the selected region or the top of the worksheet if you have only one cell selected, and finds the misspelled words. HAV is not a word, and it offers suggestions like HAVE, have, or had, or hag, and so on. So once it identifies a misspelled word, I can choose to ignore one of the misspellings in the selected range and go to the next misspelled word or the next one. I'm going to cancel this and select the next area, Launch Spell Checker. I can also ignore all of the instances of the misspelled word. In this case, it's HAV. And Excel tells me that the spell check is complete. It doesn't say is, it says spell check complete. You're good to go. They've sort of relaxed the tone of the language in these dialog boxes from the prior versions. But this doesn't mean that spell check won't call that word out again if I launch it a second time, because it'll find those misspellings because we never corrected them. I'm going to cancel that. So I'm going to select cell B17, which of course has a misspelled word, and I'm going to launch the spell checker again. And Excel has called out that as a misspelled word. When I have a misspelled word, I have the option to add the misspelled word to a dictionary. The dictionary that we're adding this word to is a custom dictionary, and we're going to take a look at that in a couple of minutes. After doing that, Excel continues to look for misspelled words in the remaining part of the worksheet. Because as I said, if you select one cell, Excel's going to check the whole worksheet. But it checks the whole worksheet till it gets to the bottom. So reg is a misspelled word. I'm going to ignore that. And Excel's going to ask me, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? So every time you get to the bottom of the worksheet, if you haven't worked your way through the entire worksheet, Excel will ask you this, and it'll start at the top again. I'm going to say yes. And of course, Excel goes by HAV, which used to be a misspelled word in Excel's eyes until we added it to our custom dictionary. And now it just goes by that and finds the first misspelled word, which is CAV, and then offers some suggestions. So I can ignore all, and Excel will continue checking on down till it completes the spell check for the remaining part of the worksheet. And Excel tells me that the spell check is complete. So I'm going to select cells D5 and 6, where I have a misspelled word, CAV. I can't use HAV anymore because Excel thinks that's the correct spelling of a word, because we told it was. So I'm going to launch the spell checker again. It's going to check that selected region because it's more than one cell. It finds the first misspelled word, which is cell D5. I can select one of these suggestions, CAVE, cave, and change that misspelling to the correct spelling of cave. When I do that, the undo last button is now active, and I can undo that, and I can instead select some other suggestion to change that misspelled word to. After doing that, it moves down to the second misspelling, CAV, which maybe I meant to input cab, and I can change that word independent of what I've done with the other misspelled words. Since I have now worked my way through the entirety of the selected region, Excel tells me spell check complete, you're good to go. I'm going to left click OK. So I can also select a region, launch the spell checker, and change all of these words to the word cave or anything on that list simultaneously by left-clicking Change All. The spell check is complete. You're good to go again. I get that message. I'm going to left-click OK. So I'm going to select the content that's in cell D17, REG, which is a misspelled word. It's not a word. And I can add this to autocorrect. But before I do that, I want to go to autocorrect and show you that it's not in the autocorrect list. So to do that, we're going to go backstage to Alt-FTP, left-click autocorrect options. And I want to show you that REG is not on the list, because if it was, it would pop up. This is the replace list. When you type in a word on the left, which is a misspelling, it'll replace it with the word on the right. So REG is not in the autocorrect list, but we're going to put it there, canceling both of those things, using the spell check. So I'm going to launch spell checker again. With the suggestion RAG selected, I'm going to add to autocorrect by left-clicking that. Do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? I'm going to say no. And now I can show you that it's been added to autocorrect in one of two ways. And notice that REG has been changed to RAG. Excel assumes that if you want to add it to autocorrect, that you are correcting the misspelling, which was REG, and the active cell. In another cell, if I type REG space, Excel automatically corrects that because we've added it to the autocorrect list. Showing you that directly, Alt-FTP for proofing, autocorrect options. Now when I type in REG, we see it listed at the bottom. REG is going to be replaced with RAG. I'm going to delete that though, so I don't actually add it to my autocorrect list. So I'm going to go back to cell B17 and put in a word that I know is not a word, FWI, launch the spell checker again, and we're going to go to the options. When we click options, we go back to the same place that we just were at when we selected Alt-FTP, only this time we're going to look at the spelling options. There are several checkboxes that are checked by default, including ignore words in uppercase, ignore words that contain numbers, ignore internet and file addresses, flag repeated words, like if you accidentally type the word that twice, which I have a tendency to do. I'm not sure why, but I know I do it. So that's checked, and I'm going to leave it checked. But this is also a way for you to access your custom dictionaries. Selecting the first one, which is selected by default, Roaming Custom Dictionary, edit word list, we can see that the word, at least we made it a word, HAV, is on there because we added it. So Excel accepts that spelling as an actual word. But since it's not, I'm going to delete it from my custom dictionary. The other words were added by default. I see my first and last name, and I see the two words that make up the account that's my Windows account that I use when I'm recording movies, which is what I'm logged into currently. So I'll leave those alone. I'm going to left-click OK and left-click OK. So in this backstage area, we also have the option to select a different dictionary. The default for my version of Excel is English, United States English, which is what I'm going to leave that at because I don't spell or type the greatest in the world, so I need Excel to watch my back. So I'm going to leave that setting the way it is. And left-click OK and cancel that. So that's Excel's spell checker. We looked at all the functionality where we could ignore one instance of the misspelled word, or we could ignore all of the misspelled words. We could add the misspelling to our custom dictionary. We can change the individual misspellings of the word. We can undo whatever change that we last made. We can change all of the instances of the misspelled word simultaneously. We can add the misspelling to autocorrect so that the next time we misspell the word, Excel will automatically correct it. And backstage, there's some option settings which include gaining access to our custom dictionary.